Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're going back in time a bit to the year 1582.
Okay.
So picture the Renaissance in full swing, right? A time of incredible intellectual and artistic ferment.
Right.
And it's also a time when alchemy, that blend of science, mysticism, and philosophy,
Hmm.
it held a powerful sway over the imagination. And that brings us to our subject, the Splendor Solis,
Oh.
a captivating manuscript penned by the, pretty enigmatic Solomon Trismosin.
You see, this book isn't just some dry treatise on alchemical processes. It's filled with cryptic text and these really vivid illustrations and allegorical tales, all pointing towards the elusive goal of creating the fabled Philosopher's Stone.
The Philosopher's Stone. I know what you might be thinking. Wasn't that just about, turning lead into gold?
Right.
And sure, yeah, that's part of it, but the alchemist's ambitions ran far deeper than that.
Yeah, that's right. The Philosopher's Stone, in their view, wasn't just a tool for, material transformation. It was a key to unlocking these secrets of nature and achieving a higher state of being. It's this intriguing duality, this fusion of the practical and the spiritual, that makes the Splendor Solis so fascinating to unpack.
Absolutely. So before we get totally lost in the labyrinthine symbolism of the Splendor Solis, let's make sure we're all on the same page here. Who was Solomon Trismosin, and what makes his work stand out in this pretty crowded field of alchemical texts?
That's a great question, and it speaks to the aura of mystery that surrounds Trismosin. He claimed to be a student of Paracelsus,
Paracelsus.
a towering figure in the history of alchemy, who actually dared to challenge some of the traditional Aristotelian views that had dominated Western thought for centuries.
So Trismosin is aligning himself with a lineage of alchemists who were pushing the boundaries of knowledge, really seeking to penetrate the hidden workings of the cosmos.
Precisely. And this spirit of inquiry is evident throughout the Splendor Solis. Trismosin, like Paracelsus, wasn't content with simply repeating the dogma of the past. He was looking for a deeper understanding of the natural world, one that integrated observation, experimentation, and spiritual insight.
And he structured the Splendor Solis in a very deliberate way, didn't he? It's divided into 7 treatises, each one like a stage in an alchemical journey.
That's right. Think of it like a spiral staircase leading upward. Each treatise builds upon the previous one, gradually unveiling the secrets of the alchemical process. It's a journey that's as much about inner transformation as it is about manipulating matter in the flask.
Okay, I'm ready to ascend this alchemical staircase. Let's start with Treatise 1, the foundation upon which the entire work rests. What secrets does Trismosin reveal in this first stage of the journey?
Well, he emphasizes the importance of greening and growing nature,
Oh.
a phrase that might seem deceptively simple at first glance. But it speaks to a core principle of alchemy, the idea that transformation is a natural process, mirroring the cycles of growth, decay, and rebirth that we see all around us in the natural world.
So instead of trying to impose their will on nature, the alchemists sought to work in harmony with these fundamental processes.
Exactly. They saw themselves as facilitators, gently guiding nature's transformative power to achieve a desired end. And this brings us to another crucial concept that Trismosin introduces in Treatise 1, putrefaction.
Putrefaction. Now, that doesn't sound very appealing. It brings to mind images of, decay and decomposition.
And you're right. On the surface, putrefaction doesn't seem like a step towards perfection. But the alchemists recognized that for something new to emerge, the old must first break down. Think of a seed buried in the ground. It has to undergo a kind of death, a rotting away of its outer shell, before it can sprout and grow into a new plant.
So putrefaction, in the alchemical sense, isn't just about things falling apart. It's about a necessary stage of dissolution that precedes a new synthesis, a more perfect form. It's like a phoenix rising from the ashes.
That's a great analogy. And this theme of death and rebirth, of transformation through a process of breaking down and building up, runs through the entire Splendor Solis.
It's fascinating how the alchemists found such profound meaning in the processes of nature, seeing them not just as physical phenomena, but as metaphors for the spiritual journey. But let's move on to Treatise 2. What mysteries await us there?
Well, in Treatise 2, Trismosin delves into the enigmatic mercury of the philosophers, a substance that held a central place in alchemical thought. Now, it's important to note that this wasn't just your average mercury, the kind you might find in a thermometer.
Right, because we all know that playing with mercury is generally frowned upon these days.
Indeed. The mercury of the philosophers was something more ethereal, more potent, something that could only be created through a series of complex alchemical operations. Trismosin links this mercury to royalty, associating it with power, transformation, and even a touch of danger.
So already we're seeing this interplay between the tangible and the symbolic. The mercury of the philosophers is both a physical substance, something that can be manipulated in the laboratory, and a representation of a deeper principle, a transformative force that can lead to either enlightenment or ruin.
Exactly. And this tension between the literal and the metaphorical adds a layer of complexity to the Splendor Solis. It's one of the reasons why people are still debating its meaning centuries later.
It's like trying to grasp smoke.
Yeah.
Just when you think you've got a handle on it, it slips through your fingers. But that's part of what makes this deep dive so intriguing, isn't it?
Yeah, like trying to grasp smoke.
Okay, so we've journeyed through two treatises, touched on putrefaction, met the illustrious Mercury of the philosophers. What's next on this alchemical staircase?
Well, in Treatise 3, Trismosin takes a kind of fascinating turn.
Okay.
Instead of laying out alchemical concepts in a straightforward manner, he veers into the realm of allegory,
Okay.
presenting us with a series of these really vivid parables.
So it's like he's saying, okay, you've got the basic principles, now let's see if you can decipher these symbolic stories.
Precisely. And one of the most striking parables in this treatise is the story of the king who undergoes this process of death and rebirth, ultimately emerging adorned with crowns of iron, silver, and gold.
It sounds like a classic hero's journey, but with an alchemical twist.
Exactly. The king in this context can be seen as a representation of the alchemist himself, or perhaps even the primal matter undergoing transformation.
Yeah.
The three crowns symbolize the stages of the alchemical process, culminating in the creation of the philosopher's stone.
It's interesting how Trismosin uses such evocative imagery to convey these complex ideas. It's like he's speaking directly to our subconscious, bypassing the logical mind altogether.
And that's a key point to remember as we delve deeper into the Splendor Solis. The alchemists weren't just concerned with dry intellectual knowledge.
Right.
They believed that true understanding involved this integration of the head, the heart, and the hand, a holistic approach that embraced both the scientific and the symbolic.
So it's not enough to just memorize formulas and follow procedures.
Right.
You have to feel your way through the process, intuit the hidden connections, and be open to the transformative power of the work itself.
Exactly. And this brings us to Treatise 4, where Trismosin shifts his focus to a crucial element in the alchemical laboratory: heat.
Ah, yes, heat. The alchemist's trusty companion, the driving force behind all those bubbling cauldrons and steaming alembics.
Exactly. But as Trismosin emphasizes, it's not just about cranking up the heat to the highest setting.
Right.
It's about understanding these nuances of temperature, the subtle gradations of warmth required at each stage of the alchemical process.
So it's like baking a cake too much heat and you end up with a burnt mess, too little, and it'll never rise. It's all about finding that Goldilocks zone, that perfect balance.
Precisely. And Trismosin stresses the importance of patience and observation, of carefully monitoring the heat and adjusting it as needed. He compares the alchemist to a shepherd tending his flock, always vigilant, always attuned to the needs of his charges.
It's a reminder that alchemy is not about forcing nature to bend to our will, but rather about working in harmony with its subtle rhythms and cycles. But let's move on to Treatise 5. What insights does Trismosin offer in this stage of the journey?
Well, in Treatise 5, he does something quite unexpected. He compares the entire alchemical operation to two seemingly disparate activities: the play of children and the work of a cook.
Wait, children playing and cooking, those don't sound very alchemical.
That's the beauty of Trismosin's approach.
Yeah.
He's constantly challenging our assumptions, urging us to see the familiar with fresh eyes.
So how do children playing relate to the creation of the philosopher's stone?
Well, Trismosin might say that children in their innocence and playfulness are closer to the natural world than adults. They haven't yet developed the same rigid mental structures, the same need to categorize and control.
Right.
They approach the world with a sense of wonder and experimentation, much like the alchemist in his laboratory.
So it's about tapping into that childlike curiosity, that sense of playfulness and experimentation to unlock the secrets of nature.
Exactly. And what about the cook? How does that analogy work?
Well, I'm guessing it's not as simple as just following a recipe, right?
You're right. Trismosin uses the analogy of the cook to emphasize the importance of skill, intuition, and experience in the alchemical process. Just as a master chef knows how to balance flavors, textures, and aromas to create a culinary masterpiece, so too must the alchemist develop a deep understanding of the properties of substances and the subtle interplay of elements to achieve success.
So it's about more than just following a set of instructions. It's
Right.
about developing a feel for the work, sensitivity to the nuances of the process.
Precisely. And this brings us to Treatise 6, where Trismosin delves into the more technical aspects of alchemy, describing specific operations like calcination, sublimation, and distillation.
So after all those metaphors and allegories, we're finally getting down to the nitty-gritty of the alchemical laboratory.
In a way, yes, but even here, Trismosin emphasizes that precision and meticulousness are essential. He doesn't just throw out a list of ingredients and tell you to mix them together.
Yeah.
He stresses the importance of following each step carefully, paying attention to every detail, for even a slight deviation could spell disaster.
It sounds like alchemy requires a rare blend of patience, discipline, and intuition. It's not a pursuit for the faint of heart. But we've only climbed 6 steps on this alchemical staircase. What awaits us in the final treatise?
In Treatise 7, Trismosin brings us full circle, reminding us that the goal of alchemy is not simply to transmute base metals into gold, but to achieve a higher level of being, a state of spiritual perfection. He emphasizes the diverse effects of the Philosopher's Stone, claiming that it can heal the sick, rejuvenate the aged, and even grant a measure of immortality.
So the Splendor Solis isn't just a recipe book for material wealth.
Right.
It's a guide to spiritual enlightenment, a map to the hidden potential within us all.
Precisely. And to help illuminate this journey, Trismosin doesn't just rely on words. He incorporates a series of 22 allegorical pictures into the Splendor Solis, each one brimming with symbolism and layered with meaning.
It's like he's saying, okay, I've given you the words, now let me show you the pictures.
Exactly. And these images are not just decorative elements. They're integral to understanding the deeper message of the Splendor Solis.
Okay, you've piqued my curiosity. Let's delve into these allegorical pictures, shall we? What visual treasures await us? So we've explored the 7 treatises of the Splendor Solis, climbed the alchemical staircase, so to speak. Now, we're about to step into an art gallery curated by an alchemist. What do these allegorical images reveal about the deeper meaning of Trismosin's work?
Well, imagine opening the Splendor Solis and being greeted by this striking image. Picture 1. 2 men stand before a doorway, bathed in the warm glow of 2 golden suns. One man is dressed simply, the other's adorned in these fine robes, and on the ground between them lies a shield, but instead of a coat of arms, it bears a 3-faced sun, etched with tears and blemishes.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. What do you make of those 2 figures standing at the threshold, like?
It's as though they represent different stages on the alchemical path. The simply dressed man, perhaps he embodies the novice, just embarking on this journey of transformation. The richly attired figure, maybe he represents someone further along, having already grappled with the challenges and achieved some degree of mastery.
And what about that 3-faced sun on the shield? It's a bit unsettling, isn't it?
It's certainly an arresting image. Some alchemists might interpret those 3 faces as symbolizing the 3 essential principles of alchemy: salt, mercury, and sulfur. The tears and blemishes, perhaps they represent the impurities that must be purged through the alchemical process.
It's a visual reminder that this journey isn't always glamorous. It's about confronting the shadows, the imperfections within ourselves and within the matter we seek to transform.
Precisely. And this theme of purification is even more explicit in Picture 7. Here, we see a queen, just radiating light, offering a crimson robe to a man submerged in this black mud. He's naked except for a single white arm reaching out from the darkness.
Wow, that's quite an image. It's hard not to see the symbolism there. The queen, with her, regal bearing and celestial glow, she must represent a guiding force, maybe even the divine feminine, leading the seeker toward enlightenment.
That's a very astute observation. And the crimson robe she offers, some might interpret that as a symbol of the Philosopher's Stone itself, the ultimate reward for those who persevere through the trials and emerge from the darkness transformed.
It makes you wonder how many women were actively involved in alchemy, maybe even concealing their identities behind male pseudonyms to have their work recognized.
That's a question that historians are still exploring, but you're right. It's highly likely that women played a much larger role in the history of alchemy than traditional accounts might suggest.
It's fascinating to think about those hidden figures, toiling away in their secret laboratories, pushing the boundaries of knowledge. But let's look at another image, shall we? What can you tell us about Picture 18?
Picture 18. Now, this one depicts a moment of triumph. We see a youthful king standing confidently on a crescent moon, bathed in this radiant light. He holds a golden orb, a symbol of power and enlightenment. It's an image of achieved alchemical mastery, of someone who has transcended the limitations of the ordinary and tapped into a higher realm of being.
It's like he's literally walking on the moon. He's radiating that soul splendor that Trismosin talks about. But not all the images are so optimistic, are they?
That's true. Picture 19, for example, presents a stark warning. A monstrous black sun dominates the sky, partially obscuring a brighter sun behind it. It's a powerful image of the dangers lurking on the alchemical path, the potential for darkness to consume the light.
Perhaps it's a reminder that the pursuit of knowledge, especially knowledge as potent as the Philosopher's Stone, comes with great responsibility. It's a theme that resonates even today, isn't it? But let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about Trismosin's treatises, his allegorical pictures, but the Splendor Solis also contains something else. A fascinating glimpse into Trismosin's own alchemical journey.
You're referring to the autobiographical section where he recounts his adventures in search of the Philosopher's Stone.
Exactly. It's like something out of an adventure novel. He starts out as this young apprentice, right? Tell us about his early days.
Well, Trismosin claims he apprenticed under a secretive miner, a man who had actually achieved the alchemist's dream, transmuting lead into gold. But tragedy struck. The miner died in an accident, taking his knowledge with him. Trismosin was devastated, but he was determined to continue the quest.
So he sets off on this incredible journey, traveling throughout Europe, seeking out other alchemists, collecting these fragments of knowledge, all the while searching for that elusive secret to the Philosopher's Stone. It's like a real-life treasure hunt. What were some of his most memorable encounters?
One that stands out is his encounter with a Jewish alchemist in Venice. This alchemist had gained quite a reputation for himself, seemed to be producing silver, but it turned out to be a clever deception. Trismosin, to his credit, was discerning enough to spot the forgery.
It's a good reminder that the world of alchemy was full of not just mystics and philosophers, but also charlatans and tricksters looking to make a quick fortune.
Absolutely. But Trismosin's journey wasn't all dead ends and deceptions. He eventually found himself employed in a nobleman's lavish laboratory near Venice. There, surrounded by alchemical equipment and rare ingredients, he witnessed firsthand the possibilities of the art.
This is where he really honed his skills, right? Did he actually achieve the transmutation of lead into gold himself?
According to his account, yes. He describes achieving a successful transmutation, much to the delight of his noble patron.
Imagine that, holding a piece of alchemically created gold in your hand. It must have felt like touching magic itself.
It's easy to understand why the allure of alchemy endured for centuries. But Trismosin's time in the nobleman's laboratory was short-lived. Disaster struck. A devastating hurricane swept through Venice, destroying the lab and claiming the lives of many, including Trismosin's patron.
It's as though fate itself was testing his resolve. But Trismosin doesn't give up, does he?
No, he doesn't. Undeterred, he presses on, eventually finding himself in an even more secretive location, entrusted with ancient texts. Kabbalistic and magical books written in Egyptian. He believed these texts held clues to the true nature of the Philosopher's Stone, hinting at a lineage of alchemists stretching back to antiquity.
It's like something out of an Indiana Jones movie. Ancient texts, secret societies, lost knowledge. What did Trismosin discover in those ancient writings?
He found references to kings Exophar, Sunsfor, Exogar, Exophalet, Julating, Exome, and others, figures shrouded in myth and legend, all said to have possessed the Philosopher's Stone. It solidified Trismosin's belief that this knowledge wasn't just a product of his time. It was an ancient inheritance, passed down through generations, hidden in plain sight. And in the final part of the Splendor Solis, he reveals his own alchemical formula, his own recipe for creating the Philosopher's Stone. He calls it the Red Lion.
The Red Lion. Okay, that's pretty dramatic. What can you tell us about this formula?
Well, it's a complex process involving dangerous substances, precise measurements, and repeated distillations. Trismosin is quite detailed in his description, but he also leaves out some crucial information. Some alchemists believe he did this intentionally to protect the secret from those who might misuse it. Others see it as a way of testing the reader's understanding, ensuring that only those who have grasped the deeper principles of alchemy would have the knowledge to, fill in the blanks.
It's a bit like those cooking shows where they deliberately leave out a key step, right? Like, oh, and then you just fold in the magic ingredient, but I'm not going to tell you what that is.
Exactly. And that's part of what makes the Splendor Solis so endlessly fascinating. It's a book that invites multiple interpretations, a labyrinth of symbolism and allegory. that continues to intrigue and inspire centuries after it was written.
It's a reminder that the quest for knowledge, for transformation, for that elusive philosopher's stone, is a journey that continues to this day.
And just like the alchemists of old, we're still searching, still experimenting, still striving to unlock the secrets hidden within ourselves and within the world around us.
It's been quite a journey exploring the Splendor Solis. Thank you for guiding us through its intricate pages and unlocking its hidden meanings.
They've done my pleasure.
And to all our listeners, we encourage you to seek out the Splendor Solis for yourselves. Explore its mysteries, ponder its symbolism, and see what treasures you might uncover. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.